is the Pope the head of the church? And that goes back to our history. And, a lot of people want to claim that Peter was the first Pope, and that goes back to Matthew, correct me if I'm wrong, chapter 16, verse 15 and following, when it talks about Jesus asking his apostles, who do men say that I am? And it says that Peter they answered and said, some say Elijah, some say John the Baptist.
Yeah, or Jeremiah.
Or Jeremiah.
Yeah.
And so he'd say, but who do you say that I am? And Peter said unto him, thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God. And he'd say, blessed art thou, Simon Bar-Jonah, for flesh and blood hath not revealed this unto thee, but my Father which is in heaven. And upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades shall not prevail against it. Now, there's some great Greek in this that we miss in our English translations. And you're being our Greek instructor here at the school, and I'm sure you want to jump right into this Petros versus Petros. Because
you're doing a great job so far, guy, and just keep
why?
rolling.
Because I'm throwing you on the spot here.
No. I know exactly where you're going, but I was looking up some other information while you were doing that.
Well, good. I'll just keep going then. But the Petros versus Petros, we know Peter. The name for that is the idea of a small pebble, a little stone. Right. But correct me if I'm wrong here, guys. But Petros was his name. Petros was the idea of a large boulder. And so he actually uses two different words here.
Yeah, one of them is masculine, and the other one is feminine.
Right.
And so whenever he makes the reference to his church, he's talking about his
bride.
Exactly. And so it's clear that because he makes that reference, this is hard for us to understand in English because we don't really have that where words have a specific gender.
Mm-hmm.
But in Greek and Spanish and languages like that, they have specific genders. So if you say, for example, I'm going to use my Spanish, la copa, okay, that's feminine. And so it's clear that I'm not talking about
El Chapo.
Yeah, a masculine thing. And so whenever he makes that distinction of the church, you can see the connection there with the masculine and the feminine.
I didn't say a bad word just then in Spanish, did I?
I don't think so, but
El Chapo?
No.
Okay.
He's a drug lord, but
oh, that's why I knew that. Okay.
That's what I was thinking.
I just knew El is masculine. Right?
El is masculine.
Law is feminine.
And then, of all things, you pick Chapo. That's hilarious.
Well, anyway. So what we have there, though, is they want to say, well, see, Peter's going to be head of the church, but it's not Peter going to be the head of the church. He's building on the foundation that Jesus Christ is the Son of God. He has the authority.
That's right.
It's that fact that the church is going to be established.
It's the confession that he made. That's what it's going to, that Jesus Christ is going to be, that's who it's going to be built upon.
Right.
And so,
in fact, Jesus is in other passages called the chief cornerstone.
Great
which
point.
Is the foundation or the building.
Is that it?
1 Corinthians 3:11.
1 Corinthians, okay. Yeah.
1 Corinthians 3:11.
Oh, I was thinking about lively stones
in other
and
passages as well, but yeah.
So here we have the chief cornerstone is being built upon.
Right.
And so this idea of the keys to the kingdom, we have to remember all the apostles were there. And in Acts 2, all the apostles were present. And now Peter gets to be credited as the spokesman a lot of time. But what's really interesting, when you see the establishment of the church in Acts 2, but then the development of it, you don't read a lot about Peter.
That's right.
Later. You read some. And so this idea of him being the first pope, you don't have the support in Scripture, one. Two, you don't ever see that terminology. Ephesians 5:23 identifies the head of the church as being Jesus Christ, not some earthly head. He establishes in 1 Timothy chapter 3, as well as Titus chapter 1, the structure for the organization of the church being the elders, as well as deacons.
Yes.
We also have, help me out here, he gave some to be
Ephesians 4:11.
Thank you. Ephesians 4:11, and in that you have the idea of pastors, preachers, teachers, but you don't see anything about the concept of a pope. Right. And then the final nail in the coffin to me is that when Paul would write to the church at Rome, you don't even see an address being made to Peter that if he was supposed to be the head of the church, why did he not even address him?
Yeah, and Peter, right. I think even Peter harmonizes with that, because in 1 Peter 5:1, he says, I, an elder among you.
Oh,
he doesn't lift himself up. In fact, I think also of of Acts chapter 10 whenever he walks into Cornelius' house. And you remember Cornelius bowed down before him. And what did Peter say? Rise up, because I am just a man also. I want to give you the history, another shameless plug for the lectureship this year.
There you go.
So I just did a lesson on this about the autonomy, and in that autonomy, it deals with this regarding the Pope and where that came from. It wasn't until the year 600 years of church history before you ever even get to this concept. And basically what I have is it was Boniface III who took on the position of Pope, that being the leader of the church, the head leader. And then historians, a lot of times, they like to look at Gregory the First as the actual real Pope, because he's the one who made all the different changes in Rome and stuff like that. But here's the interesting thing. It was Leo the First, and he is the one who was the first person to take on the name Pontifex Maximus. And he wrote out a proclamation showing a what do you call that, apostolic succession, so that he made basically a lineage from Peter all the way up to himself. Isn't that convenient?
Oh, I know it. Isn't that? Remember what we said about trying to claim things after the fact. You see that over and over.
Now, I was off on my dates a little bit there. It was on this, according to this, I think I have Leo the First was around 440, 461 AD. So I'll have to go back and double check my dates on that. But